What's up guys, today it is time to work on this Buick again, and we're going to be showing you how to do the rear wheel bearings. So as usual, the first thing you're going to do is jack the vehicle up and support it with a jack stand. Then you're going to take the rear brake caliper off of whichever side that you're doing. Right here I'm just removing the caliper to knuckle bolts. You don't need to separate the bridge from the caliper. You can just take the whole thing off in one. Then just make sure you support the caliper somewhere because you don't want it hanging by the hose. I just took it back here on top of this. Then make sure you unplug the ABS sensor from the back of the hub. Once you've done that, you're going to need a 10mm deep well socket or a shallow as an extension. And you're going to remove the 4 10mm bolts that hold the knuckle and the spindle together. You can get to that through this hole in the hub right here. After that, it's more than likely still going to be stuck to the knuckle, so I'll show you a little trick here that I use to get them loose. Just take the wheel, stick it back on, and put about 3 nuts on there just to hold it snug to the hub. And then provide a little persuasion. And it should fall right off, just don't let it fall all the way down. And then you can take those nuts back off, separate them, and the entire hub should be loose like this. Then you will need to remove the parking brake cable next, at least from the bracket below it. Here I'm actually taking the bracket off first, which is fine, you can do that too. But you will need that arm to put the parking brake mechanism back together, so I suggest taking the actual cable loose from this first. Then you'll need to separate the hub assembly in the middle from the backing plate. To do that, make sure that there's no crud around the back of this that would jam it in place and hold it in, because there usually is some kind of corrosion. Then you're going to want to persuade it pretty hard with something. Don't worry about tearing it up because you're replacing it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Once that's out of the way, make sure you keep all of your parts of your parking brake assembly together. You can see here where mine came apart because of that arm being out. So the next thing I'm going to do is actually go back and take this arm out of here like this. It just slides back in the middle here, and there's a little cup in the end of that you line up with the rod that fell out right there, and then those just squish back together just like that. And then there's the little boot that fell off. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to need the new piece, and the new hub just needs to be clocked the same way the old one was. One way to know which way is right is by looking at the ABS sensor plug. You can line that up the way that the old one was. Once you've got it sat in there, you're going to need to put the parking brake assembly back. And make sure that the parking brake shoe is in there, because it's very difficult to get back in if you don't put it in now. Then just push it up to get it out of the way, and the little parking brake assembly here should slide right in. It sits on top of the hub, and then it's got the 2 screws that hold it to the backing plate, and then 2 of the mounting bolts go through it and through the actual hub and hold all that together. So what I'm doing right here is I've now got all of that positioned. I've got the shoe pushed in the right place. The shoe will help hold the parking brake where it's supposed to be. And it does need to be aligned correctly to sit in there. And if you have it lined up right, the top of the shoe will sit over the little flange at the top. As you can see here, I missed it the first time, but there's the little flange. So you're just going to push it back up, stick it behind that, and pull it back down. That clips the top of the parking brake shoe in and holds it where it's supposed to be. Once you've got it on that flange and you've got it together at the bottom, just like that, then you're ready to put this bracket with the parking brake cable back, which is just those two smaller screws, just like I've got right here. Then you can sit the entire assembly back in the knuckle. Now, if you look through the hole in the hub, you can line the holes up to where the bolts will fit. It will fit in there clocked differently, so make sure you get it clocked just right. That's what I'm doing right here, just to make sure that the bolt holes line up. And once you've got that straight, you can go ahead and start some bolts. And definitely putting in, but also going back out, you're kind of better off to run maybe a 3/8 inch 10mm with a short extension like I did here, because the holes don't perfectly line up. And if you do like I started to do here with a deep well 10mm 1/2 inch drive, it kind of cocks the socket sideways and can make it almost impossible to start these bolts correctly. So I definitely recommend starting them with the 3/8 socket like I'm doing right here. And once you get a couple started, you can wiggle and push in to make sure that it's seated good. And then once you've got all four started, you can snug them down. I'm snugging them down with this little impact, but I'm not torquing them all the way. You are going to want to torque them to spec, and the spec will be on the screen right now. There's my cat again. If you kind of go back and forth like this and don't tighten them in a circle, sort of go back and forth side to side to make sure that it seats flat. You don't want to cock the hub sideways and then tighten it down, or you're going to have a lot of problems. Once all those are tight and everything looks good, you can go ahead and put the brake rotor back on like that. Then you're just going to go back through here and put the brake caliper back on by replacing the two bolts that you took off earlier. And you're also going to make sure to plug that ABS wire back in, otherwise your ABS light will be on. And I believe these bolts are 13mm, but feel free to double check me on that because I'm not 100% sure. Once that's done, you can go ahead and replace the wheel. Then I'm just going to use this low powered impact just to snug the nuts up so I can set the wheel back down. And once that's good and snugged, we'll sit it back down and torque it to 100 foot-pounds in the star pattern like I'm doing right here. And that's all there is to it. Another job down, and the Buick is a little bit closer to being back to 100%. That's going to be all for this video. Drop this video a like and comment for me, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for watching, and peace.